Welcome to Fans Without Borders, and today we have something a little bit different. I'm Brent, but I'm not joined by my usual co-host Ray. I am joined by Dennis Hopeless, writer of the new run on Valiant's X-O Manowar. Dennis, you've worked on several titles that I have read, from Avengers Arena to Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, all new X-Men, all kinds of things. I will just tell you, the first time I read one of your books was Avengers Arena because I found out you were from the Kansas City area, as am I. And I was like, you know what? That's good enough reason. I'm going to support the local guy. And so welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you on here to talk about X-O Manowar. Before we get started, just Dennis, how have you been doing lately?
Doing well, doing well. Yeah, it's a little bit weird during quarantine because I went from having my kids half the time but taking them to school to having my kids half the time, period. So I got to know my children really well. Uh, but no, it's been fun. It's been, I have two 6-year-old boys, and it has been equal parts fun getting to know them better and exhausting being a half-time, full-time dad. But no, it's
Sure.
great.
Good. Well, I've always kind of assumed that the comic industry led to the writers and the artists working in a virtual environment anyway. I got to ask, has the COVID stuff, has the quarantine from the last few months, has it really changed your workflow? If so, what kind of changes have you seen that to your work?
Well, it changed it in the early days. It changed it a lot because Diamond shut down. So
Yeah.
like X-O Manowar #1 came out the last week there were comics before the
Hmm.
big pencils down. So all of my work for hire went away for a period of time, and some of it didn't come back because some of the publishers completely changed their publishing plan to not have any income and for shops to be closed for that period of time. So from a day-to-day standpoint, it was really just juggling parenting. Like instead of taking the kids to school and having my work day, I had to find my work day and little drips and drabs in between, and then really hit it hard whenever on the weeks I didn't have them. But from a like career standpoint, yeah, it was really hard because income stopped coming in for the period that Diamond wasn't shipping, and a lot of projects were a big question mark. But what I ended up doing is digging into my stack of long untended creator-owned projects and leaning into that for that period of time. So I have a bunch of new creator-owned things that will be coming out next year because I got a break from work for hire where I could like really lean into that and get that stuff going. So
Okay.
it's been a mixed bag. It was good in some ways and awful in others.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I definitely hear you on the changing home life and the dynamic with the kids and stuff. I have a 4 and 8-year-old, and so not quite two 6-year-olds, but I kind of average out between them, right? So I definitely understand what you're saying there. I'm mostly familiar with your work from Marvel. I'm not going to say I've read every issue you've written, but I bet you I've read just about every title, at least a few issues from just about every title you've worked on over there. But to my knowledge, X-O Manowar, this is their first time writing for Valiant. Was this something that you pitched them? Did they approach you? How did that work?
Yeah, my career's a weird one. I had a couple of creator-owned books and then went straight to Marvel and spent most of my time doing Marvel for the last decade. And I've only gotten back into doing creator-owned and other company work for hire. But weirdly, Valiant was the one company I talked to before I started working at Marvel. It was like 2011, right before their big relaunch. They approached me to pitch a Shadow Man pitch, like way back when.
Okay.
And we were tossing ideas for Shadow Man back and forth. And then I got X-Men season 1 and Legion of Monsters, and I couldn't juggle all three, so I ended up moving on, or maybe they moved on. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I didn't do Shadow Man. But because of that, I was very familiar with what they had coming at really early on in the Valiant relaunch, and I reread all the '90s stuff. So it was kind of always in the back of my head that it was a place I could go work at. And for a while, my friend and former editor Alejandro Arbono worked there. He was an editor there
Okay.
for a while. And so we talked about a few things. So I've sort of been flirting with Valiant for like a decade now, and pitched a couple things here and there. And then Heather Antos, who I knew from Marvel, she used to be an editor at Marvel, approached me about doing a relaunch on X-O Manowar when the previous X-O run was still going. So that like we were talking about this 2-3 years ago.
The,
Um,
the previous run, Venditti's run.
yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, no,
or was there someone after him?
Matt Kent wrote it for a while. I don't remember. I feel like it was the end of Matt Kent's run, but I might have that backwards.
Okay, okay.
Anyway, whichever one ended a couple years ago. So yeah, we had a lot of runway and a lot of like, let's figure out what we want to do to make this different, but also respect what came before, because we both really like the previous work that was done. And yeah, Heather was just, hey, you've put stuff here and never got anything off the ground. Let's do X-O. And we kind of had a blank slate. We knew we wanted to do something a little more grounded, a little more super heroic, and we wanted to make the world and villains of X-O Manowar a little bit weirder, a little more out there. And how do you do that? How do you build that organically within the relatively realistic Valiant universe? So yeah, we've been talking about this for forever, it seems like, and really built it from the ground up.
Well, that actually touches on the next thing I wanted to bring up with you. You know, I've read issue 1, and which is already out, and I got a copy of issue 2 that I was able to read. Comes out here in about a month on November 25th. It is available for pre-order. I saw. It seems like you're trying to ground X-O in a way. Like, I've always thought of him as more of a space sci-fi character, and yet in these issues, like, he's dealing with civil wars, like local grounded civil wars, or, you know, on the extreme opposite scale of seriousness, a pickup game of basketball with the neighborhood kids. Is this something that you're kind of have him like see what it's like for him to develop his relationships among the people instead of flying above them like a superhero would?
Exactly. The thing about the previous 2 runs is they did the alien invasion, you know, like badass that destroys spaceships, living on an alien world. Like, all of that has been covered, and we've seen such good work with that like we kind of wanted to take the fish out of water, you know, Visigoth warrior prince, and put him in the here and now and see, like, how does that guy play as just a straight up superhero when what he's been used to battling is, you feel like, alien armadas. So now you drop him in the middle of New York City and say, go be Superman. What does that look like? How does he struggle with that? What is Shanhara's role in that? And yeah, we very much wanted to ground it and like rekindle his humanity, because, you know, he's from a different time, but this is a very human man who his life's goal before he ended up on a spaceship and jumping through time was to fight for his people and to, you know, to keep his people safe and out from under the boot heel of the Roman Empire. So what does that mission statement look like in the here and now when you're wearing, you know, the most dangerous suit of armor that ever existed in human history?
You know, you mentioned Shannara. I noticed that, like, the relationship there is very sarcastic, lots of banter. Like, you can tell they've been together for a long time. It's not like they're just feeling each other out. Like, all that's past and stuff. But with the other characters in the books, you know, with the boys with basketball or their mom who he's invited to live with, he's still trying to learn how to interact with people today. Is that something we can expect more of, learning how he develops relationships in a modern day compared to everything he's been used to, be that in space or, you know, from his own home time period?
Yeah, that's a big part of the mission statement too. There was to build out the cast of characters, and if he's going to be fighting for these people, he needs to know them. He needs to be one of them, and that, you know, that's a difficult thing when you're an ancient warrior who's been fighting alien battles, and he never really settled in, you know, modern Earth, and so we want to force him to settle in and find his people and find his place, and then, you know, fight to keep him safe. So yeah, that was a big huge thing we wanted to do, and you'll see all that going forward. We're sort of building a family around him as he finds his way as a superhero.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that car comes out. Is he able to get that car back up and running? That he caused a little bit of damage to. One of the new characters that was introduced was Troy Whitaker. To me, he sure looks like he's going to be pretty important in the foreseeable future, at least. Not quite ready to decide. Do I think he's actually villainous? Is he going to ultimately be working with X-O? And I'm not asking you to tell me, but just what is something that maybe you could tease about Troy's involvement with the series? What is something that maybe we can look for coming out for? Is he more an antagonist, or what are we looking at there?
Troy's a complicated character. So Troy is, guys, you can't be there. You got to go. It's too, my microphone will pick you up. I'm sorry. You got to go in the room. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah. Troy's an interesting character because he's he kind of fits that gray area in between. Like he's obviously self-interested. He's a self-made billionaire, tech mogul who is very much wears a PR smile all the time. He's very concerned about how people are going to perceive everything and how to get things done by, manipulating the media. But also he wants the best for humanity. He wants to help save the world, and he wants to help X-O and Shinhara find their way in that without just barreling through brick walls and pissing everybody off, like we see Arik do in the first couple issues. But yeah, he's a huge part of the book, and he's the complicated gray area is the best way to describe him. He's not, like our secret supervillain we're going to spring upon you, but he's also not straight down the middle. I can't think of the positive D&D thing. There's neutral good and there's something else good, but I can't think of what. He's not that.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but I don't really play it, so I'm not sure what the term is either. But I definitely get what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, he's just a more complicated figure, and I figured this is very frustrating to Arik especially, because if it were up to him, he would just go beat up the bad guy, stop the volcano, like do the good thing, and everybody would appreciate it. But in reality, life is more complicated than that. Like we saw in the first issue, if you catch the falling spaceship and drop it in the middle of rush hour traffic, you're going to piss off more people than you're going to make happy, despite the fact that you saved thousands of lives, because now they're stuck in traffic. And Troy is the guy that sees that and sees it coming and says, okay, we have to, kind of dance between the raindrops of this in order to get public opinion on our side. And Arik's like, I don't care about public opinion. You smile too much. Put some clothes on. Like he has a lot of thoughts about Troy. But yeah, so Troy's going to be a big part of the book and a big part of where we're headed going forward.
Yeah. You mentioned the big spaceship that he catches, and one of the things that really stuck out to me was like, often in these superhero comics, all this destruction and spaceships landing everywhere, and you never hear about it, right? And here, like, there's these news broadcasts, and they're like, it's going to take 6 months to clean this up before all these highways are going to be open again. And so it's like, yeah, he saved everybody, but their lives are like massively altered. Just massively altered, and gets into the whole their safety versus their life aspect. And so I did really appreciate that.
Yeah, we kind of cribbed the opening of Superman Returns, except when he lands the airplane in the middle of the baseball stadium. Now how are they supposed to play baseball there? Like this.
How do they get that out of there?
Right, that's actually kind of a pain in the ass.
I've always thought he just came back and picked it up and flew it off later. But
Superman probably would, but
X-O? No. So your partner on this, Emilio Liso, I think that's how you say it. You've worked with him before on Spider-Man.
Yes.
What was that like getting to work with him? I mean, obviously it's different because it's a different character, but how is it collaborating with him again? Does that help you since you have this history with him?
It was really nice to have a collaborating history with an artist, because a lot of times you write the first script not knowing who's going to draw it, or not having worked with that person, and you don't know how to like kind of lean into their strengths, and you kind of just have to see what happens. So fortunately, Emilio can pull off everything we're trying to do. He's really good at facial expression, and the quiet moments he makes them interesting and dynamic, but he can also draw all of the big crazy X-O action that you want. So I was excited to hear that he was on the project, but I also knew for sure that he was going to be perfect for what we had in mind.
Yeah, he's definitely crushing it. I really enjoyed the art in those 2 issues. So he's doing a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing what he turns in coming up. What can you tease about the future of X-O? Anything, not too specific spoilers, of course, but just what kind of things are you looking at doing over your run? What would you maybe say to somebody who is more of a DC Marvel person and wants to maybe branch out a little bit, stay with superheroes, but branch out? What teases do you have for them?
So the easy like Marvel Universe way to explain X-O has always been he's Thor in Iron Man's armor, basically, right? Sure. You have the warrior that wants to crush things wearing the super advanced super suit. And our mission statement for this in terms of the long-term story of the book was Thor Ragnarok. Like we wanted to take it in big, crazy ways. And how do you do that in a book that, number one, the first thing we're trying to do is ground him in the here and now, and also, the Valiant universe isn't science is magic in the same way that the Marvel universe is. There's a real world bent to it. So how does the world change to respond to X-O when X-O shows up, and what does that look like, and how do we build that? So like big, crazy, wild, no idea is too out there, but we get there from the grassroots, we get there from the ground up. So everything that you see at the beginning of this book is heading to the stratosphere. Like it's going to get huge and weird and out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's definitely caught my attention. I'll be checking out more issues for sure. I do before I let you go. You've been generous with your time, but before I let you go, I would be kicking myself if I didn't ask this because I am a huge Marvel fan. You've written on the X-Men, Spider-Man, the Avengers Arena. Like you've written with some of the most iconic Marvel characters there are. What is that like to know that there's books out there with your name on them that you had a part in creating like that?
It's super exciting at first. And then there's a period of time where it just becomes, well, this is what I do. I have to not worry about it. I have to not worry about what other people think of what my Wolverine sounds like because this is the job. And then eventually, yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool to realize that like I've written, how many dozen X-Men comics, and that I've affected these characters that are going to long outlive me. I've affected the trajectory of their story. And then the really cool thing about it is meeting fans like online or at cons back when we had cons, and finding out that like my Jean Grey is their favorite Jean Grey, or my Emma Frost is the one that they hear in their head or whatever. That's really a humbling thing because I was a big X-Men fan growing up and a big Marvel fan. And the fact that I got to be a part of that and build in that world is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I met you at a con at Planet Comic Con in Kansas City a couple of years ago, where I bought this X-Men book from you. And I'm pretty much a digital guy, so for me to buy a physical book, it definitely caught my attention. But I really enjoyed your writing, and I wanted to check that out as well. Dennis, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you joining us for this and giving me a look at X-O Manowar. Issue 1 is already on sale. Again, issue 2 is available for pre-order. Is there anything else you want to plug?
I've got Sea of Stars, a book that I co-write with Jason Aaron, drawn by Stephen Green, is on shelves now. Our second arc just kicked off here a couple months ago. So that is about a boy and his father lost in space trying to find each other. It's equal parts The Road and Finding Nemo, and Jason and I split it. He writes the Finding Nemo part with the kid swimming through space, and I write the Road part with a terrified father dealing with all of these space horrors that he thinks are going to murder his child. That's a fun book.
That's great.
And then, right now there's that and X-O and a whole bunch of stuff that's not announced yet. So if you want to see more creator-owned work from me, that is coming hot and heavy real soon, and I'll announce it probably on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Hopeless Dent on Twitter, Dennis Hopeless Comics on Instagram, and find out more there.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to seeing more of what you've done. So thank you for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.